Amara sat cross-legged on the edge of her bed, staring at the envelope in her hands. It was cream-colored with elegant gold lettering that read, "You're invited to a special day." She ran her fingers over the words but couldn't bring herself to smile. Her father Marcus had been buzzing with excitement all week about his upcoming wedding. Everyone around him seemed thrilled, his friends, co-workers, even distant relatives who barely remembered Amara's name. But for some reason, she felt like something wasn't right. Marcus had raised Amara alone ever since her mother passed away when she was just 8 years old. He'd always been her rock, balancing work and parenting while somehow finding time to tuck her into bed every night or cheer her on at soccer games. Losing her mom had left a hole in Amara's heart, but Marcus filled it with love and patience. That's why this wedding felt so strange to her. It wasn't just another milestone, it felt like a shift in their world. Vanessa, Marcus's fiancée, was someone Amara didn't know much about. They'd only met twice, both times briefly, during awkward dinners where Vanessa barely spoke unless spoken to directly. She was polite enough, wearing perfectly tailored outfits and flashing practiced smiles, but there was something cold about her presence. Amara couldn't put her finger on it, but it made her uncomfortable. When Amara finally mustered the courage to ask Marcus about Vanessa, he chuckled and ruffled her braids affectionately. "You'll warm up to her," he said dismissively. "She's going to be your stepmom soon. Give her a chance." But Amara couldn't shake off the nagging feeling in her gut. Something about Vanessa didn't sit right. Maybe it was how quickly their relationship had progressed, from meeting online to planning a wedding within 6 months. Or maybe it was the way Vanessa avoided looking Amara in the eye whenever they were together. Whatever it was, it gnawed at her constantly. One evening, after Marcus went out to pick up dinner, Amara found herself poking through his study. She told herself she wasn't snooping, just curious. Tucked inside a desk drawer was a folder labeled "Wedding Plans." Flipping through it, she saw receipts, guest lists, and notes scribbled in Vanessa's neat handwriting. One note caught her attention. "Make sure Marcus signs the papers before the ceremony." Papers? What papers? Amara frowned, trying to piece things together. Was Vanessa hiding something? And if so, what? A knot formed in her stomach as fear began to creep in. If Marcus trusted Vanessa completely, then maybe no one else would believe Amara if she tried to warn them. Still, she knew she couldn't stay silent. This wedding was happening in less than 2 weeks and she needed answers. Fast. As she slipped the folder back into the drawer, Amara resolved to dig deeper. She didn't care how long it took or how hard it would be. For her dad's sake, and for her own peace of mind, she had to uncover the truth. Little did she know what she would find would change everything. The next morning, Amara woke up with a sense of purpose. She couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling from last night's discovery about Vanessa. The note mentioning papers lingered in her mind like an unanswered question. What kind of papers? And why did they need to be signed before the wedding? Amara knew she had to find out more, even if it meant stepping outside her comfort zone. Her first move was subtle. She asked Marcus casually over breakfast about the wedding preparations. "Dad, does Vanessa have everything ready for the big day?" she asked, trying to sound nonchalant. Marcus looked up from his coffee cup and smiled. "Almost," he replied. "She's been handling most of the details herself. I told you, she's amazing at organizing things." Amara nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, she seems super organized." Then, hesitating for a moment, she added, "But do you guys have any legal stuff to take care of before the wedding? Like contracts or something?" Marcus raised an eyebrow, looking slightly confused. "Legal stuff? No, not really. Why are you asking?" Amara shrugged, playing it cool. "Just wondering. You know, people always talk about prenups on TV shows and stuff." He laughed lightly, waving her off. "Nah, we don't need anything like that. We trust each other completely." That answer didn't sit well with Amara. If there were no prenuptial agreements or legal documents involved, then what could those mysterious papers be? She decided to take matters into her own hands. Later that afternoon, while Marcus was busy running errands, Amara grabbed her laptop and started searching online for information about Vanessa. All she knew was her full name, Vanessa Carter, and that she worked as a real estate agent. Typing her name into a search engine, Amara scrolled through pages of results until something caught her eye. A news article from 3 years ago titled, "Local Realtor Cleared in Financial Dispute." Curiosity piqued, Amara clicked on the link. The article detailed how Vanessa had once been accused of pressuring elderly clients into selling their homes under suspicious circumstances. Although nothing was proven, the accusations painted a troubling picture. Amara felt her heart race as she read further. Could this be connected to what she'd seen in the folder? Determined to learn more, Amara reached out to one of the names mentioned in the article, a former client named Mrs. Thompson. After some persuasion, Mrs. Thompson agreed to meet Amara at a nearby cafe. When they sat down together, the older woman looked skeptical but willing to talk. "Why are you asking about Vanessa?" Mrs. Thompson asked cautiously. Amara took a deep breath. "My dad is marrying her soon, and I think she might not be who she says she is." Mrs. Thompson sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I can't say I'm surprised. That woman has a way of charming people until they don't realize what's happening. She convinced me to sell my house when I wasn't ready, promising me top dollar. But by the time I figured out what was going on, it was too late." Amara listened intently, her suspicions growing stronger with every word. By the end of their conversation, she realized that Vanessa might not just be hiding something, she could be dangerous. As she walked home, Amara's mind raced. How could she prove her theory without causing unnecessary drama? And more importantly, how could she protect her dad from making a huge mistake? One thing was certain. Time was running out. Amara's heart pounded as she sat alone in her room that evening, replaying Mrs. Thompson's words in her mind. Vanessa wasn't just manipulative. She was calculated, deliberate, and willing to go to great lengths to get what she wanted. But how could Amara prove it? Her dad trusted Vanessa completely, and without solid evidence, he'd never believe her. She glanced at the clock on her wall. Marcus wouldn't be home for another hour, which gave her just enough time to search his study again. Last night's discovery of the note about papers had only scratched the surface. There had to be more clues hidden somewhere. Taking a deep breath, Amara tiptoed down the hallway and slipped into her father's office. The room smelled faintly of leather and old books, a comforting scent that usually brought back happy memories. Tonight, however, it felt tense, like every creak of the floorboards might give her away. She moved quietly toward the desk, pulling open drawers one by one. Most contained nothing unusual, bills, pens, random receipts. But then she found something tucked behind a stack of folders, a manila envelope labeled "Property Documents." Her pulse quickened as she opened it. Inside were several official-looking papers, including deeds, contracts, and bank statements. One document stood out, a pre-signed property transfer agreement granting Vanessa partial ownership of their family home. Amara's stomach churned as she read the fine print. According to the agreement, once Vanessa became Marcus's wife, she would gain legal rights to half of the house. "This can't be real," Amara whispered to herself, shaking her head. Why would Vanessa need access to their home? And why hadn't Marcus mentioned this before? It didn't make sense. Unless Vanessa wasn't marrying him for love at all. Suddenly, a sound from outside the door startled her. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Panicking, Amara shoved the documents back into the envelope and slid it under a pile of papers just as Marcus walked in. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Amara froze, her mind racing for an excuse. I was looking for my history textbook," she stammered. "I thought I left it in here." Marcus frowned but didn't press further. Instead, he smiled warmly. "You've been acting strange lately, kiddo. Is everything okay?" She forced a smile, hating how easily he saw through her. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just stressed about school stuff." Once Marcus left the room, Amara exhaled deeply, her hands trembling. She couldn't let this slide, not now. If Vanessa managed to gain control over their home, it could ruin everything. Their house wasn't just a building. It held years of memories, laughter, and even tears after losing her mom. Losing it would mean losing a piece of their family. Next day, Amara decided to take drastic action. She called Vanessa under the pretense of wanting to bond before the wedding. They met at a coffee shop downtown, where Vanessa greeted her with a polite but distant smile. "I wanted to apologize for being distant lately," Amara began carefully. "I know I haven't been very welcoming." Vanessa tilted her head, clearly surprised by the sudden change in tone. "That's sweet of you, Amara. I appreciate it." As they chatted casually, Amara subtly steered the conversation toward finances. "So, Dad said you're really good with money. Do you handle all your investments yourself?" Vanessa's expression shifted slightly, though she maintained her composure. "Well, I do enjoy planning for the future," she replied smoothly. "It's important to have security, don't you think?" Amara nodded, filing away Vanessa's response. There was no outright confession, but the way Vanessa spoke about security sent chills down her spine. It confirmed what she already suspected. This marriage wasn't about love. It was about gaining power and wealth. By the end of their meeting, Amara knew exactly what she needed to do next. She couldn't stop the wedding alone. She needed help from someone who would listen and understand the gravity of the situation. As she walked home, her thoughts turned to her godmother, Tasha, a sharp-witted lawyer who had always been like a second mother to her. If anyone could help unravel Vanessa's scheme, it was Tasha. But reaching out meant risking everything, including her relationship with her dad. Could she really do that? Or was she overreacting? For the first time since starting her investigation, Amara felt truly scared. But fear wouldn't stop her. Not when so much was at stake. Amara spent the entire night tossing and turning, her mind racing with questions. She knew she couldn't face Vanessa alone, not when the stakes were this high. But involving someone else meant risking her dad's trust and potentially ruining his happiness. Still, as dawn broke through her bedroom window, one thing became clear. She needed help. And there was only one person she trusted enough to turn to, her godmother, Tasha. Tasha had been a constant presence in Amara's life ever since her mother passed away. A no-nonsense lawyer with a heart of gold, Tasha had always encouraged Amara to speak up when something felt wrong. "Trust your instincts," she'd say. "They're usually right." Now, more than ever, Amara clung to those words like a lifeline. After school the next day, Amara biked over to Tasha's house. The familiar sight of Tasha's cozy porch, adorned with potted plants and wind chimes, brought a small sense of comfort. Taking a deep breath, Amara knocked on the door. When Tasha opened it, her warm smile faded slightly at the sight of Amara's worried expression. "Hey, sweetie. What's going on?" "I need your help," Amara blurted out before stepping inside. Once they were seated in Tasha's living room, Amara spilled everything. The note about the papers, the property transfer agreement, Mrs. Thompson's story, and her unsettling conversation with Vanessa. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. Tasha listened intently, her brow furrowed in concern. When Amara finally paused for air, Tasha leaned forward, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "You did the right thing coming to me," she said firmly. "This is serious and we need to handle it carefully." "But what if I'm wrong?" Amara whispered, her voice trembling. "What if Dad finds out and hates me for ruining his wedding?" Tasha shook her head. "You're not ruining anything. If Vanessa is hiding something, then protecting your dad and your home is the most important thing you can do. Let's focus on gathering evidence first, okay? We'll figure out the rest later." Over the next hour, Tasha helped Amara devise a plan. They decided to dig deeper into Vanessa's background, starting with public records and financial disclosures. Tasha also suggested reaching out to a private investigator friend of hers who specialized in uncovering hidden motives in relationships. "We'll dot every I and cross every T," Tasha assured her. "If Vanessa has skeletons in her closet, we'll find them." Feeling slightly more hopeful, Amara left Tasha's house that evening with a renewed sense of purpose. However, as she rode her bike back home, doubt began creeping in again. What if Marcus never forgave her for interfering? Worse yet, what if Vanessa found out what she was doing? Her fears intensified later that night when Vanessa unexpectedly showed up at their house. Marcus had invited her over for dinner, and Amara struggled to act normal, while Vanessa chatted animatedly about wedding plans. Every laugh, every smile from Vanessa felt like a mask hiding something sinister. When Vanessa casually mentioned how excited she was to move into their beautiful home, Amara's stomach twisted into knots. After dinner, while Marcus cleaned up the kitchen, Vanessa pulled Amara aside. "I've noticed you've been trying hard lately," Vanessa said, her tone sugary sweet. "It means a lot to me." Amara forced a polite smile, though her insides churned. "Thanks. I just want us to be a family." Vanessa nodded approvingly, but her eyes lingered on Amara for a moment too long, making her feel exposed. It was as if Vanessa suspected something, but how could she know? That night, lying in bed, Amara replayed the encounter over and over in her mind. Had she given herself away? Or was Vanessa simply testing her? One thing was certain: she couldn't afford to slip up now. With Tasha's help, she was closer than ever to uncovering the truth. But the clock was ticking, and Vanessa wasn't someone to underestimate. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Amara. With Tasha's guidance, she dove headfirst into uncovering the truth about Vanessa. Together, they pored over public records, bank statements, and property deeds late into the night. Tasha's private investigator friend, Mr. Carter, proved invaluable, providing crucial details that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of Vanessa's past. It turned out that Vanessa had been involved in multiple questionable real estate deals over the years. In one case, she had convinced an elderly couple to sell their home at well below market value, only to flip it weeks later for triple the price. In another instance, she had manipulated a grieving widow into signing away her inheritance rights shortly after her husband's death. Each revelation made Amara's blood run colder. But the most damning evidence came when Mr. Carter discovered something shocking. Vanessa had filed for bankruptcy twice in the past decade. Both times, she had emerged debt-free by transferring assets, like properties or cars, to close associates before declaring insolvency. It was a pattern of behavior that suggested Vanessa wasn't just opportunistic, she was predatory, armed. With this information, Tasha sat down with Amara to strategize their next move. "We have enough here to raise serious red flags," Tasha said, spreading out the documents on her dining table. "But we need to present this carefully. Your dad trusts Vanessa completely, so he's not going to believe any accusations without concrete proof." Amara nodded, chewing on her thumbnail nervously. "What do you suggest?" Tasha leaned back in her chair, thinking hard. "Let's organize everything into a clear timeline. We'll highlight patterns and inconsistencies in Vanessa's story. Then I think you should talk to your dad first. Alone. Show him the evidence and let him process it. If he still refuses to listen, then we involve the authorities." Though the thought of confronting Marcus terrified her, Amara knew Tasha was right. This was her family, and she couldn't sit idly by while Vanessa manipulated them all. That evening, she gathered the documents, printed copies of key findings, and prepared herself mentally for what lay ahead. The following day, Amara waited until Marcus returned home from work. As he settled onto the couch with his usual post-work coffee, she approached him hesitantly. "Dad, can we talk? It's important." Marcus looked up, surprised by the seriousness in her tone. "Of course, kiddo. What's up?" Amara took a deep breath and handed him the folder containing the evidence. "I found these," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "They're about Vanessa." Marcus frowned, flipping through the pages. At first, his expression remained neutral, but as he read further, confusion gave way to disbelief and then anger. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, his voice rising. I didn't make it up, Amara insisted, tears welling up in her eyes. Please, Dad. Just look at the facts. She's not who she says she is. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing the room. For several minutes he said nothing, his face pale with shock. Finally, he stopped and looked at Amara, his voice heavy with emotion. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I tried, Amara cried, her frustration spilling over. You wouldn't listen. You kept brushing me off every time I brought her up. Her words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Marcus sank back onto the couch, running a hand through his hair. He glanced at the papers again, his jaw tightening. This doesn't make sense. Why would she do this? Amara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Maybe she doesn't love you, Dad. Maybe she loves what you have. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at the floor, visibly struggling to process everything. After what felt like an eternity, he reached for his phone and dialed a number. When someone answered on the other end, his voice was steady but firm. Vanessa, we need to talk, now. Within an hour, Vanessa arrived at the house, her usual polished demeanor intact. She breezed through the door with a warm smile, but something about her calm exterior felt forced, like she was bracing herself for battle. Marcus greeted her, stiffly, his earlier anger simmering just beneath the surface. Vanessa, sit down, he said, gesturing to the couch. His tone left no room for argument. Vanessa's eyebrows arched in surprise as she sank onto the cushion. Is everything okay? She asked, glancing between Marcus and Amara, who stood nervously near the doorway. Marcus didn't respond immediately. Instead, he slid the folder across the coffee table toward her. Explain this. Vanessa picked up the folder, flipping it open casually. At first, her expression remained neutral, but as she scanned the documents inside, her composure began to crack. Her hands trembled slightly and her lips pressed into a thin line. When she finally looked up, there was a flicker of panic in her eyes, but only for a moment. Then, as if flipping a switch, she straightened her posture and smiled coolly. I'm not sure what you're accusing me of, she said smoothly, setting the folder aside. These are just financial records. Everyone has them. Marcus leaned forward, his voice hardening. Don't play dumb, Vanessa. You've been manipulating people for years. Lying, scheming, using them for their money. Did you think I wouldn't find out? For the first time since Amara had met her, Vanessa seemed genuinely rattled. Her smile faltered, and she shifted, uncomfortably on the couch. Marcus, you're misunderstanding things, she began, her voice tinged with desperation. This isn't what it looks like, I can explain everything. But Marcus wasn't buying it. He stood abruptly, pacing the room as his frustration boiled over. Explain what? How you plan to take half of my house once we got married? Or how you've done the same thing to countless others before me? Amara watched silently from the corner, her heart pounding. She wanted to say something, to step in and support her dad, but the weight of the moment kept her rooted in place. This was Marcus's fight now, and she knew he needed to handle it his way. Vanessa tried one last attempt at damage control. Please, Marcus, let's talk about this privately, she pleaded, casting a pointed glance at Amara. She's poisoned your mind against me. Marcus froze, turning to look at Amara. For a brief second, doubt flickered across his face. But then he shook his head firmly. No, Vanessa, my daughter didn't poison anything. She showed me the truth, a truth you were trying to hide. With that, Marcus grabbed his phone and dialed 911. Vanessa's eyes widened in alarm. What are you doing? She demanded, her voice rising. I'm calling the police, Marcus replied evenly. You need to answer for what you've done. As Marcus spoke to the dispatcher, Vanessa sprang to her feet, panic overtaking her carefully constructed mask. You don't understand, she cried, backing toward the door. I love you, Marcus. This isn't fair. But Marcus didn't flinch. He simply stood there, his arms crossed, watching as Vanessa's facade crumbled completely. By the time the police arrived minutes later, she was sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her purse like a lifeline. The officers listened intently as Marcus explained the situation, showing them the evidence Amara and Tasha had gathered. Vanessa, protested loudly, insisting she was innocent, but the documents spoke for themselves. As the officers escorted her out of the house in handcuffs, she shot a venomous glare at Amara. "You'll regret this," Vanessa spat, her voice shaking with rage. Amara flinched but held her ground. She knew Vanessa's words were empty threats, just another attempt to manipulate. Still, hearing them sent a chill down her spine. Once Vanessa was gone, Marcus collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Amara hesitated for a moment before sitting beside him. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The relief and sadness was palpable. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner," he murmured, placing a hand on Amara's shoulder. "Thank you for saving me, for saving us." Amara nodded, tears streaming down her face. It was over, but the scars would linger for a long time. In the days following Vanessa's arrest, a strange quiet settled over the house. The wedding. Invitations were tucked away in a drawer, forgotten but not erased entirely from memory. Marcus spent most of his time sitting quietly on the porch, staring into the distance as if trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Amara watched him carefully, unsure of what to say or how to help. She felt a mix of relief and guilt, relieved that Vanessa was gone, but guilty for the pain her actions had caused her dad. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus called Amara outside to join him. He handed her a mug of hot chocolate without saying a word, and they sat together in silence for a while, listening to the crickets chirp and the wind rustle through the trees. "You know," Marcus finally said, breaking the stillness, "I thought I'd found someone who could fill the emptiness after your mom passed, but now I realize I wasn't really looking for love. I was just lonely." Amara looked at him, her heart aching. "Dad, it's okay to be lonely," she replied softly. "But you deserve someone who truly cares about you, not someone who wants to take advantage of you." Marcus nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You're right. And I have you, don't I? You've been my rock this whole time, even when I didn't see it." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes, and she reached out to hug him tightly. For the first time in weeks, she felt like things might actually be okay. They weren't perfect, they never would be, but they were enough. The next morning, Tasha came over to check on them. She brought fresh pastries and a stack of self-help books she jokingly referred to as Therapy Light. Sitting around the kitchen table, the three of them talked openly about everything that had happened. Tasha encouraged Marcus to seek counseling, reminding him that healing was a process, not an overnight fix. "I'll go," Marcus promised, surprising both Amara and Tasha. "And maybe we can start doing more things together as a family again. Just the two of us," Amara grinned. "Like game nights?" "Exactly," Marcus said with a laugh. "No more rushing into anything until I'm ready. From now on, I'm taking life one step at a time." As the weeks passed, their home began to feel lighter. Marcus started spending weekends teaching Amara how to cook her favorite meals, something he hadn't done since before the wedding plans began. They laughed over burnt pancakes and spilled flour, finding joy in the little moments they'd almost lost sight of. At school, Amara noticed a shift within herself too. She felt stronger, braver, like she'd faced her biggest fear and come out the other side. Her friends noticed the change too, commenting on how much more confident she seemed. When one of them asked why, Amara simply smiled and said, "Sometimes you have to fight for what matters." Meanwhile, news of Vanessa's arrest spread quickly through town. People whispered about her schemes, shaking their heads in disbelief. While some criticized Marcus for trusting her, others praised Amara for having the courage to speak up. Though the attention made her uncomfortable at first, she eventually realized it wasn't about fame. It was about standing up for what was right. By the end of the summer, Marcus decided to sell the house. It wasn't an easy decision, but he knew it was necessary. Too many memories of Vanessa lingered in its walls, tainting the space they once called home. Together, he and Amara searched for a new place, a smaller, cozier house where they could start fresh. On moving day, as they unpacked boxes filled with photos and keepsakes, Marcus paused to look at a picture of Amara's mom. "She'd be proud of you," he said softly. "Of both of us." Amara smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was all that mattered.